Now, when I was a kid, and when I was growing up, I had a lot of different musical influences in my life. Now, I grew up in rural Arkansas, so of course on the radio I heard Garth Brooks and George Strait and Reba McEntire. My grandparents, they would listen to Sandy Patty and Amy Grant and the Gaithers on their 8-tracks. Any of y'all remember 8-tracks? Yeah. And of course, being a kid of the 80s and the 90s, I fell in love with bands like Metallica and Nirvana. My mom wasn't real crazy about that. And so I would go over to my friend's house and make a bootleg copy of their cassette tape. And put a different label on it so I wouldn't get in trouble. And, what's that, Mom? Oh, yeah, that's the new Michael W. Smith album. Yeah, that's what it is. But my dad, he wasn't into any of that. Instead, at home, when we were with the family, we listened to his vinyl records of the Beatles and John Denver and this band called Chicago. Does anybody remember Chicago? And one of my favorite songs from Chicago was this one that asked a profound question. Does anybody really know what time it is? Does anybody really care? That question of, do you know what time it is, seems like a simple one. Seems like a simple question. Well, yeah, I know what time it is. Well, not right now because I took my watch off, but sure. We answer that question on a regular basis. Maybe sometimes sarcastically. Do I know what time it is? Yes, it's time for you to buy a new watch. That's what time it is. Right? That's a simple question when we first think about it. But the author of Ecclesiastes invites us and reminds us that time is about more than just the minutes and the hours on our clocks that rule our everyday lives. And that there's wisdom in knowing what time it is. For example, the time is about the seasons. Time is about the season. Now around here, we know good and well that there's a time to plant and a time to harvest, right? Yeah. Even those of us who don't farm plan our events and our activities around the planting season and the harvest season because we know that our neighbors' lives and livelihoods depend on these things. And our lives and have seasons as well. We go through seasons in our lives. And a lot of times we prefer to stay in the summer season when everything's good, it's warm, it's comfortable. We can go outside, we can enjoy it. We see the flowers blooming and the trees bearing fruit, or the fruit of our labor, things that are coming up in our lives, things that are moving forward. That we feel like we're making progress in the summer. We have more time and more energy in the summer of our lives. But seasons move in cycles. And we know that if we're in the summer of our lives, then winter is coming. Right? Now, I don't like winter. Does anybody like winter? Anybody at all? We got 2 people that like winter. 3, all right. Interesting. As far as I'm concerned, the only thing winter is good for is snow skiing. And we ain't got no hills and we ain't got no snow, so forget winter. Right? And so winter, though, in our lives, winter is this season that is cold and it's depressing. In our relationships, when we're going through winter, we feel distant and disconnected. And it looks, when we look around us in the winter of our lives, we don't see anything growing. In fact, it feels like everything is dead. It feels like there's just nothing happening at all. We work and we have nothing to show for it. Winter is really a frustrating time of our lives. And we want to just skip back to spring real quick. Just go ahead and skip winter altogether. But we need winter. Because even though we don't see what's going on, we realize that God is at work God is at work in the winter of our lives. You know, when you plant wheat in the fall, what happens, Gary? You don't see much happening through the winter, right? There's not a whole lot of growth, not a whole lot happening all winter long, but you know that the roots are developing and are growing and are gathering nutrients so that in the spring you can begin to see growth. And in the summer, when the wheat gets tall, it can stand up to the wind. And all that is happening in the winter. And in the same way, when we turn to God in the winter of our lives, we realize that God is showering grace on us all along and developing deep roots to help us stand up and to help us grow tall when the time comes. And so, time is about the season of our life. But time is also about the rhythm and the pace of our life. The way we perceive the movement of our lives. Right? Well, when we're kids, if you remember when you were a kid, and some of y'all still are, but you remember when you were a kid that life moved so slow. The time took forever. Right? Jocelyn would sit there and go, Dad, what time is it? And like it's 5 minutes after the last time you asked me, right? I took, about a year ago, I took Jocelyn squirrel hunting for the first time, and we went over to Iron Horse, a little bit west of here, and we were hiking along, or we got on through the woods, and we found a good spot to sit down, and I said, now, Jocelyn, we got to sit here for a while. We got to sit here for 20, 30 minutes at least to give the forest time to kind of forget that we're here. To give the squirrels time to forget that we're here. And we've got to be real quiet and we've got to be real still. And it wasn't even 5 minutes later when Jocelyn's like, has it been 30 minutes yet? Is it time? Can we go? Can we move? Right? Because when you're a kid, time takes forever. Time moves so slow. We can't wait for the next birthday. We can't wait for school to be out and summer to start. We can't wait until we're old enough to drive. But those of us who have made it to adulthood, we don't have that problem, do we? No. We have the opposite problem. We're looking around trying to stomp on the brakes so that we can slow time down just a little bit. Because it's moving too fast. There's too much going on. There's too much happening. We want to slow time down so that we can enjoy it and we can savor it. And time is going so fast that we're trying to find ways that we can save just a little bit of time, and we've got so many things to do that we are missing out on enjoyment, we're missing out on relationships just to get one more thing checked off of our to-do list. We have this tendency when we live by our clocks and our schedules to give into the world's demand to go, 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 when God is, in Scripture, is always inviting us to get in touch with our inner tortoise and slow down. We have this tendency to need to work and to produce and to make things happen, when God invites us and reminds us that we need to take time, just like the author of Ecclesiastes says, take time to drink and eat and enjoy the fruits of our labor. Fun fact, did you know that Denmark is the happiest place on earth? Some of y'all thought it was Disney World, didn't you? Yeah, you were wrong. By comparison, the United States is actually like 13th happiest place in the world. And when they were asked about it, the Danes said that their secret to happiness is this way of life that they call hygge. And hygge is like, well, I'm going to just show you this video a little bit and let y'all kind of see what
hygge is a feeling of being warm, safe, and sheltered. In spite of long winters and freezing temperatures, the Danes are considered to be among the happiest people in the world, in part because they practice hygge every day. It's about small rituals and daily experiences. It's putting down your phone, sharing a meal with friends, snuggling by a fire with someone you love, or tucking in with a good book. We can all experience the coziness and contentment of hygge.
This life, this way of life that they have of hygge sounds a lot like that eat, drink, and enjoy the fruits of your labor that Ecclesiastes talks about. And I always find it delightfully fascinating when sociologists and psychologists and economists all get together and they put their heads together and they come up with some key secret to the good life. And it turns out it's something that God's been telling us all along. Right? That the key to abundant life is that you don't work all the time. You take time to rest. And that all the money and all the wealth and all the things in the world won't replace relationships and gratitude and generosity and the simple pleasures that come with living an abundant life. And that at the end of our lives, none of us will wish we had worked more. But we'll all wish that we had taken more time to savor the moments. Which brings me to another thing about time. And I love this picture, y'all. This is like total cuddle city in our house. But it brings me another thing about time. Time is out of our control. It's out of our hands. The French composer Hector Berlioz said this. He said that time is a great teacher, but unfortunately it kills all its pupils. Which is kind of sad, but profound. You know, whether it's a time to be born and a time to die, or a time to mourn and a time to dance, or a time to listen to babies make their noise, which is awesome. We don't know what tomorrow brings. And we don't know when this season that we're in will end and the next one will begin. We don't. And so we go through life. And we go through time. It's like the last verse in the passage that we read today. Verse 15 says that, everything that has happened has happened. And everything that's going to happen has happened before. And God watches over all of it. We have no control over time. We have no control over the seasons of our lives. But we can make the most out of the time that we have. And we can make the most out of the season that we are in. We can do that. But in order to do that, we have to know what time it is. Everybody turn to a neighbor and say, do you know what time it is in your life?
I know what time it is in your life.
We have to know what time it is. And to do that, we have to tune in to God. We have to tune in to God, who provides everything that we need for every season of our life. To give us the wisdom to know when it's time to plant, and it's time to harvest, and it's time to prepare. We have to turn our attention to God, who watches over our whole lives, for the wisdom to know when it's time to speed up and it's time to slow down and savor the moment. We have to trust in the wisdom of God, who always knows what time it is. And we have to trust Him to lead us. Let's pray.